Hello and welcome back to this Damnful Idealistic Crusade. It's actually a video I've been meaning to make for some time. I got a number of titles in the Indicator sale before last, and then grabbed another one or two in this sale. This most recent sale. Indicator, of course, is my favorite label pretty much in the world, and they do their occasional website sales, which are great, but the U.S. shipping costs, because of international shipping, are still they're definitely prohibitive for those of us who are disc fans and film collectors who are on a tight budget, which means that even with a sale, you really have to pick and choose which titles you're most interested in. And of course, Indicator, all their releases are limited editions until they sell out. But thankfully, they do make standard editions, but they make these amazing box sets, and their booklets are really unrivaled, I think, in terms of collector's editions, in terms of Blu-ray releases. The fact that the limited editions will get you the reversible art and the fantastic booklets on the standard disc, and then when those go, they do at least thankfully reprint their great discs, but they're without the booklets and things. So when their titles go out of print, they at least give you a decent heads up. They'll say, oh, we have 100 copies left of such and such, and only 30 copies left of such and such. The more Indicator titles I've gotten, the more I've really come to really love and appreciate the limited edition specialities. That booklet and all the fun things, and especially these box sets, have made me really regret missing out on a lot of limited editions so far. One box set in particular, I'm still just steaming mad at myself that I missed out on it, because I've gotten most of the other volumes so far, and I'm getting the next volumes as well. But I have to pick and choose which indicators I go for, because again, being in the US and being on a budget means you really have to pick and choose. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of import sellers who have indicator titles, and those who do, usually have a pretty decent markup on them. So it really makes more sense to just buy directly from Indicator. And I will say that even though their shipping is definitely it's a bit pricey coming from the UK, they have the best international shipping I have ever seen anyone do. Even in the middle of COVID, I got a box set delivered from them in about 2 business days from the UK to the US through customs, and an absolutely bulletproof packaging. I have never seen any type of media release packaged that well. Even the best eBay sellers don't do the level of shipping they did, and again, just astonishing. So even if you do have to pay for their shipping, which again is a bit expensive for international customers and those of us here in the States, they really do an amazing job. And they also have a rewards point system on their website, so it's not much, but at least it's something nice. And they do bundle deals on their new releases and stuff, which also helps save a little chunk of change. So I am now going to start getting more from them directly, probably chipping away one at a time. But every time their sales pop up, they are great sales. It's just that shipping just usually sort of undoes that deal on the titles you wanted to get. So again, this is really it's more of what I picked up in the last sale, but again, one or two things that I've gotten since then, and some stuff that was going out of print, and some stuff that I picked up other places because again, it was going out of print. I didn't want to miss out on it this time. But what I wanted to show first is Indicator does this nice thing where not only do they pack stuff in orders that you get from them, but also they will toss in extra goodies and things if you order directly from them, some poster recreations and things. So this came in my order. I've got two of these, but their insert even is fantastic. So this is advertising their Fu Manchu box, but it's a full-on postcard really, and it's this beautiful little booklet of their limited and standard edition releases. And again, what's great about Indicator is if you miss out on a title or a box set that you really wanted and just didn't get to get before it went out of print, it will come back out as a standard edition. And there's already so many of these that I need to get that I missed out on the limited edition of. And again, it's the same exact disc and content. The only thing that you lose is the really great booklet and the reversible art, and of course the box set if it was a box set. And then here are some of the box sets on the back. Again, so many of these I still need to get before they're gone. But there are a number of these that I'm going to cover in this video. But again, even their little advertisement flyer insert is just displayable. And then because I got some of the Hammer box sets, I was lucky to get some of the theatrical poster postcards and lobby cards they included. So these are full on, beautifully printed, thick cardstock postcards with an actual indicator logo holding them together, which is a really nice touch. And not everybody gets these. It's just you have to order things at the right time, or it's a limited run while supplies last. But they do little things like this all the time. Again, usually it's a poster or little postcards like this, but these are legitimately fantastic. It's on a nice thick cardstock. I mean, I'm never going to mail these because they're so great. But this was for the Hammer set. So here's the one for the Gorgon. And it's not just one volume. It's sort of various films from the different volumes they've done. So here's the one for Cash on Demand. Here's one for Camp on Blood Island. Taste of Fear. And Visa to Canton. Again, these are so wonderfully done. I'm never going to use these. I'm just going to keep them all nice because it's just wonderful to have something of this quality that's included. It's just a little freebie. So first we'll start with the limited edition standalone titles. These were all ones that were on low stock alert and films I'd always wanted to get. And what's great about Indicator and why I like to get their editions is even if somebody else has already released the film in question, most often, actually pretty much in every instance, Indicator, even if it's the same source, will do a far better job on the encoding of the disc with maxed out bit rates, original audio. They go the extra mile in terms of their extras. They use original poster art on the discs themselves, and their booklets are unmatched, really, in terms of just how much is in them. They're not just throwaways. And so basically, if a title gets an Indicator release, it's just about the best anybody can do in terms of a disc release for a film, because again, Indicator goes above and beyond, even in the technical aspects, which is something that most reviewers don't cover, and is extremely important because, of course, I'm the type of collector and film nerd that, if I want to get a film on disc and I know there's different releases and different label versions, I want to know which is the one I need to plunk my hard-earned cash on. And again, Indicator goes above and beyond in terms of making sure every aspect, even if it's an older master, they encode it so well, and do things like present alternate versions, any different aspect ratios, you name it. So again, I've really come to appreciate these limited editions, and so these were ones I wanted to get before they disappeared. Some of them have already gone out of print, unfortunately, but again, Indicator's really good about bringing out a standard edition very quickly, so you can still get their disc release, but of course it won't have the great booklet and the reversible art on these. So first up is Spine Number 9, so it's one of their earliest discs. This is a really underrated film. This is the John Huston picture, Fat City. I believe this one is out of print now, so I'm not trying to rub it in. But again, they do bring out standard editions, which will look just like this, but they won't have the booklet and the reversible art. Loaded with extras, and again, this one pretty much goes above and beyond compared to the other releases. Twilight Time had done it here in the U.S., but I wanted to wait and get the Indicator version because I knew it was a bit better tech-wise and had a few more extras and original art that looks gorgeous. They do include a DVD copy, and then show you what these booklets look like if you've never seen one. So every time you get a tinted image from the film, and then my favorite part is on the back, they always have a picture of the director from either the set or around the same time period. And yeah, just a wonderful touch that I've always really appreciated. So not only do you always have the cast and crew, but these are, I don't know, you can't really tell. They do have a heft to them, but they are loaded. Each one has multiple essays. They routinely use original press book materials, so it's critical pieces, it's pieces of historical criticism, so you get a historical context of how the film was received back then. Beautifully laid out, and again, another thing is they frequently use original vintage interviews, or they get original cast and crew to contribute to some of these, if at all possible. So it's not just critics and who would normally be in the talking head blurbs and the extras and stuff. So again, I really think no one does a better job on their booklets than Indicator, and they always include an about the transfer that literally is more than just, oh, it was a 4K scan, blah blah blah. That's it. Um, you get the special thanks and everything, but you get a legitimate, full-on paragraph about the either restoration or just the disc presentation in general, and then you get the Indicator credits. So again, I really love their booklets. So I am so mad at myself that I didn't start getting more Indicator titles before these limited versions started disappearing, because I think, oh, it's just a booklet. It's not really worth much. They're really fantastic. So here's the art, and then the reverse art on this is just without the Indicator banner on the top. So next up is spine number 104 for them, which is their limited edition of The Snake Pit. This is actually a film I had revisited not too long ago and wanted to get the Blu-ray because it's a new 4K restoration. So this is the Indicator version. Just a fantastic release. The new restoration looks really gorgeous on here. If you've never seen this film, even if a film about people with mental problems, mental disabilities in an insane asylum in the 1940s doesn't really sound like your idea of a fun night out at the movies, and even though it is what would used to be termed as a message picture or a picture about social problems, it's really well done. And of course, Olivia Havilland is fantastic and absolutely fearless in the lead performance. Gorgeous artwork on here, I have to say, just absolutely beautiful. What I do like about Indicator is they will list all the extras out. It looks very simple, but it's very easily readable, very well laid out, and they literally list every extra on here. But again, this cover is gorgeous. It looks like an actual. This looks like a book cover. It really does, but it's just stunning. And that combined with a new 4K restoration plus extras, same art on the disc itself, just absolutely gorgeous. And again, the reverse just takes the Indicator label off. Again, thick, gorgeous booklet. There's the rear. So again, well worth your time. This is a beautiful disc. This is a great 40s film, really underrated. And I had forgotten just how powerful it was until I rewatched it. And it was before I got this, so I hadn't seen the restoration yet. So I was actually looking at the old DVD. It ports over the commentary from there, which is a really nice commentary track as well. So fantastic release. Next up is Spine number 109. This is a title that was done by Twilight Time here. It's also a 3D title. It went out of print super fast, long before I could get it. And of course, Twilight Time discs are very expensive, they're still around, but, when we're thinking about the original Twilight Time, their price points were normally, much more than what you would normally pay for a Blu-ray. And so this film went out of print, and then I was kicking myself because there was no good release around, and I'd wanted to get it on disc somewhere somehow, because it's a film I saw on TCM growing up. Really love it, even though its reputation isn't the greatest, and it is obviously patterned after House of Wax. But that is, of course, the 3D release of The Mad Magician, the Vincent Price film, literally 1954, barely a year after House of Wax, following a very similar idea and also shot in 3D, but this time in black and white. There are some elements of this that I do like better than House of Wax. It's maybe not as strong overall, but it's still Vincent in his earlier horror days, before he was completely typecast as the horror star, and it's got a lot of fun stuff in it. And this is also including the 3D version, which was restored originally for the Twilight Time release, and then Indicator was able to reissue it on their own label. And really do an even better job with extras in the encoding. So this is much better than the out-of-print Twilight Time disc. Plus, you get the option to watch it in 3D if you happen to have a 3D-capable older television. Again, loaded with extras, and this art is gorgeous. I mean, it just is fantastic. Again, it looks like it could be a book. Just beautiful. Here we have the disc itself, and then on the reverse, I'm guessing, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe it may be US and UK art difference, or this is just another poster, I'm not for sure, but That's more of an exploitation style poster with all the words all over it. And again, gorgeous, super thick, nice glossy booklet, just loaded with extras and interviews and critical pieces on the film. So even for a film like this that doesn't have a fantastically great reputation outside of horror circles or 3D circles or Vincent Price fans like myself, they still go to the same lengths. So beautiful release. And again, if you do miss out on the limited editions, you can still get the same disc as a standard edition. And again, there's many that I'm going to have to do that on. Next up is number 111. Again, this is a title that was in the out of print list or going out of print list. And again, I was just like, I got to go ahead and get this because I'm a giant Anthony Mann nerd. I haven't seen this film in ages. There's not really very good releases over here. So I had to go ahead and grab what unfortunately became his final film that he was unable to finish before his death, which is A Dandy in Aspic. Which is made right in the middle of the 60s spy craze. And again, Mann unfortunately passed away during the production, and so it was actually Lawrence Harvey, the star of the film, who actually wound up sort of taking over and finishing for Anthony Mann. It's a really interesting picture. It's not perfect, but again, anytime you have something like that happen where the director unfortunately dies during production, it's definitely going to cause some issues. There's a ton of beautiful extras on this release and a really nice booklet, but I love that they used the original poster art, which is just beautiful. Gorgeous booklet. Let me show you the disc itself. Then the reverse is beautiful alternate poster artwork. So now we move on to the box sets, which is really what made me sit up and take notice when I started seeing what these box sets looked like and how beautifully they were made. And then, of course, they're limited, and I started seeing some of them go out of print. And then I started really hating myself that I hadn't gotten some of these because, again, until you get one of these in your hands, you don't really understand how beautifully well made, how wonderfully subtle these are, and they still fit on a shelf. They're not, giant and oversized. They don't have a coffee table book shoved in them. And again, even though they are a bit more expensive, once you tack on the international shipping and things, they're still not too terribly pricey. And again, just beautifully made. So this is one that, of course, Criterion did these same films from the same restoration, and their box set looks pretty nice. Has some nice extras. But then I saw what Indicator did with it, and they added so many of their own extras. Did a superb job all around, and with the sale that was running and everything, this actually wound up being even cheaper than the Criterion version. So I just went ahead and went for it. And I have to say, now that I actually have it in my hands, I think this is one of the most gorgeous looking box sets I've ever seen, regardless of format. That is, of course, the Indicator release of the Dietrich and von Sternberg set. And of course, Indicator puts their classic little slip sleeve on. So you remove that, and you just have this. I'm just gonna put it a bit close so you can see up close. I mean, of course, I'm trying to hold it straight in the camera, but I mean, this is absolutely gorgeous. This looks like an old first edition hardcover novel. I mean, just absolutely stunning. So you get the full breakdown of extras. Again, this really vaults ahead of the Criterion release, which was a nice box set of its own and does have exclusive extras. So if you want absolutely everything, you will have to get both box sets. But if you're just looking for which one is the better purchase to go for, it is the Indicator version. So here is the slip sleeve. And they always put the titles to where you can easily read. And then they put the limited edition on the slip sleeve, so it's not actually printed on the box, so it keeps the box looking nice, and then you get the actual image for each film. And then what I've always loved is they always put some sort of quote on the other side, whether it's a quote from people involved or a quote from the original marketing campaign of each film. And of course, the boxes themselves, I kind of knock on it so you can see it's really thick, really sturdy, hardbound. Again, very much like an actual hardbound book, and they're just so beautifully made. And you don't fully get that until you're actually holding it in your hand. Seeing a picture online, it just looks like a cardboard slip box. I mean, this is something else. This is just, I mean, I am amazed every time I look at one of these. So normally indicator boxes will have it's typically 4 cases, and they don't use standard cases as you saw on the standalones I already showed. Indicator cases, they're clear like a Criterion case, but much thicker and much sturdier. I don't know exactly what you call them. I just call them indicator cases, but it's a particular type of Blu-ray Amaray clear case that are really, really nice. But on this set, they did something different. They've done it a few times. So to give, I guess, each film its own individual art and individual spine number and things, they have made these wonderfully done cardstock slim cases that you see something and you see cardboard and you're like, oh no, because you immediately think of cheap cardboard or cheap packaging, or especially those awful cardboard sleeves for Blu-rays that do nothing but leave giant scratches and scuffs on your disc. But these are beautifully printed. Again, we'll go in order real quick. So here is Morocco, and as you can see, has a very thin spine, so they all fit inside the box set very nicely, but it's in their standard style, so you get beautiful original artwork, and each film gets its own case. Get artwork on the inside, and again, these are cardstock, so they're very beautifully printed. So these are just gorgeous. And then on each, you get a still underneath the disc tray. Now, one thing I have noticed that I think is important to note if you get one of these sets, because it's cardstock, the corners sort of protrude over where the plastic is a little bit. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but what that means is you have to be very careful when you're taking these in and out of the box set itself, because you don't want to ding or crumple your corners because they sort of stick out a little bit on all the edges. Again, that's not a design flaw or anything. That's just something that's probably unavoidable with this type of design. So if you're not careful, you could very easily ding the corners, which you won't want to do with a set this beautiful looking. So that's just something I've noticed when I've been getting discs in and out. I've noticed you got to be really, really careful. That's the only minor thing I've noticed about this. Otherwise, it's just absolutely stunning, and again, just beautifully put together. So here is Dishonored. Again, gorgeous original artwork, and they're so beautifully printed on here. Again, it's not just cardboard. It's an actual cardstock that's really thick. It feels very, very premium, and the printing is just unbelievable. Trying to do this on cameras, I kind of look a little clumsy, but I want to show just every aspect I can of this because it's just unbelievably made. And then what's cool about the covers that have artwork that was originally on a black background, well, for Shanghai Express, they went ahead and just made the whole thing black to match, and it's just beautiful. Again, custom extras, just, I mean, wow. Again, the pictures of this do not do it justice. You have to get this set and have it in your hand. I mean, I really don't know if there's a better designed art design for any Blu-ray box set. I mean, this is another level. I already think Indicator's box sets are fantastic, but this one, especially making these custom sleeves, no, I should say, sorry, custom jackets for each disc. I mean, it's just, oh, gosh, so much attention to detail went into this release. Here's Blonde Venus. And again, these are so well printed. They literally look like vintage first edition, perfectly preserved hardcover books. And I love that they kept original taglines on the back. I mean, this combined with the new restorations on these, I mean, just wow. I am so glad I took the plunge on these because I hadn't seen all of these films. I'd seen most of them, and I hadn't seen any of the new restorations. So when Criterion announced their box, it went on my wish list, and then Indicator did theirs, and then I did like most other people. I started looking at the boxes and trying to see, okay, which one has more extras. But when you really look at this, Indicator has so many more extras, and the packaging is so exquisite, and the encoding is perfectly done. This is one where they really just vault ahead of even Criterion, which is really saying something. Here's Scarlet Empress. Again, I show all of these because they're just so beautifully done. I just meant to do a quick update video, but I just wanted to go through these just to show you because this set is still in print. So if you were on the fence about this release, I mean, please do yourself a favor and pick this up. Even if you want to wait for the next sale, definitely don't let it go out of print before the sale expires. I'm sure they'll make, their usual standalone editions like they do for every other title, but this set is a work of beauty. There's Devil is a Woman. And then for this, they didn't just do a booklet. This is a full-on book. It's on very wonderful cardstock, has a nice sheen to it. There's a picture of Sternberg on the back. But this is like one of their normal booklets, but on steroids. Again, you should be able to see the thickness difference, but it's actually, fully bound. It's not just, a stapled booklet, but it is just jam-packed. I mean, this thing is just wow. So yeah, this takes up the whole extra bit of the box set. So as you can see, it is definitely like two of the normal cases put together. So again, even with all of them, you want to make sure to very carefully put this back in. And again, it's relatively easy, but you want to make sure you're not doing this in the dark, or if you're doing a double feature and you pull the next one out in the dark, and it's going to be very easy to ding the corners and things. So, but they slip out very well. And again, all the Indicator releases are perfectly sized, so there's no worries about stuff not fitting and things like that. But with this one in particular, the ones they've done like this, you want to make sure that you're careful when you take stuff in and out, because otherwise you'll ding the corners up. So again, this is the Dietrich and von Sternberg box set from Indicator. Again, the pictures do not do it justice. I think this is one of the most beautiful home video releases ever made. It's stunning. Now next, I already talked about this title in my best of the year video. This title took my my award. It's not really an award, but this was my choice for best box set of the year. Just because these titles I thought would never hit Blu-ray, and I'm a gigantic John Ford fan, so of course I picked up the John Ford at Columbia box. And this is typically how their boxes will look. The same wonderful hardbound quality, but then you get their style of amaret case inside instead of... so the Dietrich box is much more of a special case. I'll just show you these real quick. And again, I went over this in my Best of 2020 video. But wonderful films. Whole Town's Talking. And then... Long Gray Line. Some of these are Blu-ray debuts and feature new restorations, Gideon's Day as well. And then The Last Hurrah, which was also done by Twilight Time before, but this one adds more extras. And as usual, Indicator just vaults ahead in terms of the extras, the presentation, and the disc encoding as well. So there's the disc with beautiful booklet. And then here is the wonderful slip sleeve. And again, this thing is loaded with extras. All four of these films are really underrated. And of course, being a giant John Ford geek, the fact that he's not never mentioned as often as he should be. So anytime there's Ford love, especially in HD, I'm just amazed. So again, Twilight Time had done, I believe, 2 of these films before. And of course, Twilight Time went out of business. Now they're back in business, but most of their original releases are out of print. So the Indicator editions do bring them back into a print and add new extras and really advance on those. Plus, the other two films are Blu-ray premieres, and some of these are from new restorations as well. And again, loaded with extras, as the back will show you. So this is another essential Indicator box set. This is another set I grabbed in the sale because, again, I've missed out on so many already, and I'm just so I'm more and more amazed the more Indicator titles I go for. So I've wanted to get more into Sam Fuller for the longest time. I know some of his more famous titles, but I couldn't resist since this was still on sale and available. The Sam Fuller Columbia box, 37 to 61. Beautiful artwork on this. I mean, this is just screams darkness and noir, and I love the spine. Just fantastic. Loaded with extras on all these titles, and here what they did, since there's multiple films on sharing discs because they are shorter run times, they do share cases on some, and in addition to sharing discs. So you get the traditional Indicator case style, but it's not like the Dietrich Sternberg set where they each have an individual one for each film. The slip sleeve really quick. And this one is much higher number, so this one's 4684 out of 6,000. So I'm pretty sure this one will probably hit the low stock pretty soon because it's been around for a while. So I figured on this one I would go ahead and grab it before it did disappear. Because again, the Indicator box sets are just, nobody's doing things to this quality level, and box sets especially. So even if it is a bit pricier, I am much more willing and ready to spend a little bit more on one of these releases where every aspect is meticulously crafted than I am just buying the usual standard stuff that we all want. So here is the first disc, which gives you It Happened in Hollywood, Adventure in Sahara, and Power of the Press on inside one case. Beautiful artwork, and doesn't make you feel cheated that each film doesn't have its artwork on the case itself. But what they did, in addition to the great booklet and the disc, when you actually flip over to the other side, you get a more traditional cover with each of the three titles. And again, this looks very much like, say, a book omnibus. And here is Shockproof with Scandal Sheet. Again, wonderful extras, and these are from newer restorations with participation from the Film Foundation. Again, wonderful thick Indicator booklet again. And again, I love this matching alternate art they made for all of these. So if you want something that clearly lists all the titles, you can put that on the outside. And again, it looks like a book omnibus. And then the last two are on standalones. You get the Crimson Kimono. Gorgeous original art. Lovely extras. Wonderful thick Indicator booklet. Gorgeous art on the disc. And then on the reverse, if you prefer that art, that's fantastic. I mean, that just looks great. And then what's cool is they also kept the spine white, so it matches with the way the exterior one is. I think this is my favorite picture in this set, so I'll show this on the back. Just wonderful, the candid shots they get. And then to round out, you have Underworld USA. Again, loaded with extras. Great thick Indicator booklet, and then show you what the alternate art looks like. So one more glimpse of the box without the sleeve on. Again, this is a beautiful release, and several of these titles have been released over here by other labels, but again, the Indicator versions really surpass those. Just beautifully done. This makes a great companion piece to the Fuller set that the Masters of Cinema label did, which I really would love to pick up, but I think that has now gone out of print. Again, this one is probably going to go on the out-of-print list soon, so if you're interested in this and haven't gotten it yet, definitely try getting it sooner rather than later. Again, if this is any indicator, no pun intended, this is 4684 at 6,000, so it's definitely a higher number. So we will round out with the box sets that are really from the series that put Indicator much more on my radar. I first became aware of them really with their Night of the Demon release, which is still one of my favorite Blu-ray releases of all time. And it's one of their standalone film box set releases in the limited package that is very much like a slimmed down version of one of these box sets. So then I started looking at their Hammer releases, and I think that's what most people are aware of them for, are their outstanding releases for Hammer films, not just the horror films, but the non-horror films, the dramas, the war films. And I've really been enjoying the quality they've put into these. I mean, just real exquisite work in terms of Blu-ray and transfer and extras. And even if a master is older, they still go out of their way to try and fix things or include additional footage. So it was on one of these, I'll mention that in particular. So the first one I had gotten, and this was one I already had. This is the one that really made me sit up and take notice of their box sets, was the Hammer Volume 4 box, which has the 4K restoration on Revenge of Frankenstein, which is one of my favorite Hammer films, one of the most underrated and one of their masterpieces. So I was stunned when I got this, and when I looked at that disc, and I literally bought this set just for that. So this was the first one that I got, and it made me realize I needed to go and get the earlier ones. Unfortunately, this happened after Volume 1 went out of print and now has skyrocketed in value. So I still really would love to get that, but it looks like I'm going to have to get these standalones for titles like the Gorgon that were in there, which again are better than the release we got here in the US and have better extras, more extras. But I really wish I could have gotten that box set so I could have all the matching ones. They've just now announced Volume 6. They've released 5 volumes so far, but it started to look like the earlier volumes were going to dry up. So I went ahead and got those while I could, and now unfortunately both of them are out of print. So this will be, again, not trying to rub it in, but if you happen to see these somewhere, definitely get them if they're at a decent price, because they are unfortunately out of print and are really skyrocketing in terms of what they're going for on the used market. So first, this one I actually had to go outside of Indicator. I was going to get it on their site, but then they sold out. And then I found the Zavi website. I don't know if you pronounce it Zavi or Zavi. They have a US version and a UK version, and their US site still had a couple of these. So this is Hammer Volume 2, the Criminal Intent box. So this doesn't have any of the more famous horror films, but has some really great classic films in here that are really well worth the price of admission. Just beautifully done. Let me slip the sleeve off. Gorgeous artwork, and in the same very thick, sturdy, bound box, and with the matching Hammer logo on the sides. Now you can see why I'm so mad at myself I didn't get Volume 1 before it goes out of print. I still hope I can find that somewhere someday, so that's why I haven't gotten some of the standalones yet, because I have this crazy hope I might find Volume 1 somewhere that it and not have to pay $350 for it. And these Indicator box sets are now becoming very big collector's items, so the values are increasing. So a set like this would cost you somewhere around $50 to $60, with all the currency conversions and stuff and the shipping. But now these are going for, I've seen them on eBay for well over $100, and they're continuing to rise. This one's probably the most underrated because the titles are much more for Hammer aficionados or British film aficionados, because it doesn't have any of the big horror titles. But these are just wonderfully done. And if Indicator does a box set for anything, it's well worth your time. And again, these really vault ahead of the USA DVD releases some of these got. The Snorkel is the first film. This is one of my favorite Hammer films. It usually gets labeled as being Hitchcockian, which any great thriller gets that label thrown on it, and that's not a bad thing. This one, kind of as a film, it sort of is if you almost cross Shadow of a Doubt, but set it in a setting like To Catch a Thief. Beautifully made, brilliant black and white cinematography from Jack Asher. Just an incredible release, really great extras on this. Fantastic booklet, and then you get completely alternate artwork on the reverse sleeve. Next up is a film that was very controversial on its release, but is exceptionally well done, especially considering the subject matter. So this is Never Take Sweets from a Stranger. loaded with extras. I'm saying that a lot, but for me being an extras and special features junkie, an indicator release will give you hours of material, and I've really enjoyed. I go through these titles one at a time, so I watch the film and then I watch all the extras and then I listen to the commentary like the next day. So it definitely takes some time to go through an indicator release, but these films in particular do stay with you and they do cause you to really think about what you've just seen. So I really enjoy the ability to be able to go through and really, well, I guess the best word is really savor over the experience that I've just had with a film, whether I'm seeing it for the first time or revisiting it. And this is just beautifully done. And what's great about this version, you getting the alternate art there, but this actually also gives you the alternative US version because this film had a completely different edit and title over here. So that's something else that Indicator does very frequently. If there's an alternate version of a film or a different presentation or different aspect ratios, they will be included as well. And they do take very great care to make sure that that doesn't mess up the encoding as well. If it's necessary to spread it over two discs, they go ahead and do that. And I appreciate that so much. So then the next is the full treatment. Again, gorgeous art, fantastic extras section. Great booklet and the disc art. Again, you also get the alternative US edit of the film, which again has a completely different title. And here you can see the US poster with the US title. Again, much more dramatic and much more, bold colored and in your face. And then last is this great little film, which is Cash on Demand. Here you get to see Peter Cushing with Andre Morel coming back, working together in another Hammer film after Hound of the Baskervilles, but very much playing against type. And this is a wonderful thriller. Some bits of dark comedy, but it's also very gritty at the same time. Again, I really find most of the Hammer suspense films and their thrillers and the war films as well, which you don't think of, the non-horror films of Hammer are just fantastic. In a lot of ways, it's actually better than most of the horror output, and it's unfortunate that they focused so much on horror and started making these intelligent films less and less. Basically, Jimmy Sangster wound up spinning off into the psychological horror films, some of which are in this set and they're sprinkled throughout the other Indicator sets. But films like this and the war films and things, they became less and less important and eventually just seemingly drifted off the production schedule for the most part. This is also giving you the full-length version. It does include the very much cut down version that apparently was released in the UK. It's just barely over an hour. So for the longest time, you couldn't see this film properly. So it's definitely advisable to look at it on this Indicator release. Here's the interior, and show you the reverse sleeve. And then here's the slip sleeve. And all of these match across the Hammer sets, so they all match perfectly on the shelf, and I'm still kicking myself I didn't get Volume 1. So last but definitely not least, this is another Hammer set that unfortunately is also out of print now, so if you do find it somewhere, definitely go ahead and get it, because it has gotten very expensive on the used market as soon as it went out of print. That is, of course, Hammer Volume 3, the Blood and Terror edition. Gorgeous artwork taken from original art from Terror of the Tongs. So you get this beautiful, menacing Christopher Lee portraiture on the front. The green and red on the black just looks stunning. You get the Hammer logo on the side, so it matches perfectly. These releases are, again, stuffed with extras. You can tell the folks at Indicator are massive Hammer nerds. This is just catnip for anybody who, like myself, is really interested in the studio's history and things outside of just their famous horror films. And the titles in here are ones I really enjoy and are very thought-provoking and hugely underrated. So these are their war films, and then, these are two of their World War II films, and then two films that are based on, I guess you would call them historical adventure, but all of them, since they deal with other cultures and ethnicities, they do come under some scrutiny, or at least I should say 3 of them do, to varying degrees. So some people may not be as into them, but you do have to look at them with historical context. And really, outside of that, I do really enjoy all four of them. But the real surprising ones are their war films, which, knowing Hammer, they're still using extremely low budgets, but these are very gripping, incredibly effective war films that are horrendously undervalued. Both directed by Val Guest after he did Quatermass Experiment for the studio. So the first is Camp on Blood Island, which was ridiculously successful, but was seen at the time as sort of trying to make a quick buck out of source material and actual historical events where wounds had not quite healed, because this was still not too long after the war ended. But this is a brutal, gripping, dark film. I think the only thing you could maybe criticize it for is its portrayal of the Japanese is very one note, and all played by other actors and makeup and things. But of course, they did have trouble getting actual Japanese actors at the time, so that has to be considered as well. And they didn't have a lot of money. But outside of that, this is a gripping World War II film. It's a prisoner of war drama about British prisoners in a Japanese prison camp. But the gag, the main plot thrust is that the war has already ended, and the prisoners have to try and keep their captors from finding that out by sabotaging radio or doing any means necessary. Because if they do find out the war is over, then they'll just execute all the prisoners. So it is ridiculously dark, incredibly suspenseful, but you do have to keep that caveat in mind that the Japanese are presented as very one note. But I mean, this is an incredibly effective film. It was ridiculously successful, had a really successful tie-in paperback, but again, you can see from some of the original promotional art, it was definitely, trying to capitalize on, a certain bloodthirsty quality. So they took the criticism in stride, and Val Guest came back and did their next war film, which was based on a well-respected play, and tried to give a more balanced view of conflict. So in here, the British officers are just as their motives are just as questionable, their actions are just as questionable as the Japanese, and that is Yesterday's Enemy. This is an incredibly dark, brutal film where you see, it's amazing because you see British officers committing war crimes. Literally, it makes no bones about it. This is, basically it boils down to the story as a morality play, but it's based on events that really did happen. The production design is fantastic because it literally does feel like you're inside of a jungle in the middle of war, and they're still in England. They did have to use some stages at, I believe it was Shepperton Studios, and then they actually flooded them. So, I mean, it's just one of the most brutally effective, most you are there World War II films you'll ever see. For me, this makes me think very much of films like Objective Burma, which really tries to give that sense of being in the jungle heat and the misery of actually being in the Pacific theater of war. So this is a very dark, very incredibly well-made World War II film, horrendously underrated, that does definitely try to answer some of the criticisms that Camp on Blood Island had. So both of these, it makes a great double feature. Both were directed by Val Guest, and both are in black and white, which really helps the effectiveness of the drama being seen, because you really feel, especially the sweat. It's so rare that people sweat in films, but in both of these, you really see the sweat and the pain on the actors' faces. So these releases are loaded with extras, great commentaries, so incredible releases. I had seen pieces of these before, but I'd never gotten to see them in their entirety, especially not in HD. So these were real surprises for me, and they're some of the best World War II films I've ever seen. Now, this one's an old favorite of mine. This is just a fantastic film. And so, of course, as they mentioned the extras, it's amazing how much, blood and guts and violence they got into a film simply because it was a historical adventure film, and it wasn't a horror film, quote unquote. So it was in retrospect, and especially when the American censors got a hold of this film, they were like, what are we looking at?" And that is, of course, the great film The Stranglers of Bombay, which is based on the actual existing Thuggee cult in Indian history. So the lead character is a British officer who is trying to uncover why so many people and so many caravans full of goods disappear, and people just simply disappear, or they eventually find a body or two. It is a very gripping, dark, brutal film. Not for the faint of heart, shot in black and white scope, which really gives it another feel, and I think really does tighten the drama and increase the effectiveness of everything you see. Again, there is great violence in this film, but it's all dramatically warranted, and it's not afraid to be really grisly when it needs to be. So, the death scenes, the torture scenes in this film, and then really the signature set piece where the lead character is captured by the Thuggees and staked out, and gets approached by a menacing cobra before his mongoose shows up to fight the cobra. But fantastic film. I think this is it's definitely a huge influence on Temple of Doom, being the one of the major films with Thuggees in it prior to Temple of Doom. So I'm sure Spielberg knew of this film, at least at some point, or maybe they looked at it again in the prep process on Temple of Doom. So this is really one of the few. There's not a whole lot of historical adventures. They did finally make another film on the same topic, which is the great film The Deceivers with Pierce Brosnan, but that is unfortunately very hard to get a hold of. I think it's pretty much out of print. But this is a wonderful film if you've never seen it. And what's great about this is not only do you get the UK edit, you get the US edit version, and then Indicator went the extra mile. In addition to making a fantastic booklet, reversible art, they made a special version on this Blu-ray, and this is what makes this Blu-ray worth its weight in gold. They took the British version and the US version, and all the different edits between the two means that you lose some pieces of footage in between the two versions, so neither one is complete. So they basically made a complete version. So they give you an option to watch their third version, which includes all the cut pieces from both the US and UK versions. And so that's become my preferred way of watching it. So it's really fantastic to see the extra pieces from the UK version, because on DVD we had the US cut since it's a Columbia owned film, and I'd just seen this film on DVD before, so that was really amazing. So this is the most special disc in this set because they went to that extra level of detail to literally make a third master that includes every single little scrap from both versions. So if you get this disc, just go ahead and watch that version, because that is really the way the film should always be seen, with every little bit of extra footage intact. And then last, this one is one that most people are very hit or miss on. This is Terror of the Tongs from 1961, and again, you do have the issue of actors and actresses playing other ethnicities. It is based on the real life Chinese Tongs, but it is very much sensationalized. And Hammer Films never had a large budget to play with, but all that aside, I really do enjoy this film. It's very dark and grisly in the right places. There are some very surprising deaths. It's also a little bit cheesy because, again, it is very low budget, and so it's definitely a mixed bag. It's got very luscious color cinematography. So it's really great to see this on Blu-ray again. Before, I've only seen it on DVD, and they went to a lot of trouble to make really great extras and supplements for this release, just like all their Hammer discs. And again, that art is so good, they used it for the box set. And as you can see from the way that Christopher Lee is dressed and made up, you could basically consider this a sort of dry run for when he would play Fu Manchu years later. And of course, now Indicator has done a beautiful box set of the Fu Manchu films, which I'd never really paid much attention to, and the reputation isn't that great, but it's such a beautiful box set with brand new scans and tons of extras that I really can't wait to pick that up and dig into it, because these Indicator boxes, and really all their releases, they have this archival quality to them because you're able to look at films and look at every aspect of them, whether you like them or not, whether they're a mixed bag like this film is. You're all the extras are so far ranging that it's very much like a again, it's like you're looking from a historical or an archival standpoint because you're getting so much different information that you're able to look at a film in its entirety, in its release history, its foreign release history, its promotion, and its reception, and its reception now because you're listening to critics in the extras and the essays talking about the film in a modern context. So that makes releases like this for films like this that people have very mixed opinions on even more rewarding. So it's really unfortunate these sets are all out of print now because they're so well done. I'm gonna have to get 5 and then 6 when it comes out. 5's already out because I'm so impressed and so in love with these Hammer boxes so far. So it's unfortunate that I didn't get volume 1 before it went out of print. I still hope I can find a copy that won't literally murder my wallet. But again, these are so well done. But if you do miss the boxes or you do want standalones, that is an option, thankfully, once the box sells out. So you can get standard editions, which is, again, probably what I'll have to do on the Volume 1 titles. So that does it for this indicator update. Again, I should have made this video already when the blast sale happened in November, December of last year, but figured better late than never, and I'm always happy to talk about Indicator because they've really just amazed me so much, which is not something I can usually say about Blu-ray releases, because usually there's some aspect that drives me bonkers, or the encoding's not as good, or I do really a great amount of research on disc releases if a film has multiple releases, and I try to figure out which is the better one because, again, you want your hard-earned money to really get you the best possible release. And another thing about Indicator is they do make their titles region-free when they are able to. Most of their early releases were region-free, but apparently Sony, who owns, of course, the Columbia Library and who is their main partner, apparently they eventually said, no, we want you to just do region B. So on the later releases, and pretty much all of them now, they will be region B locked, but they do a good job of, if they are able to make them region free, legally, they go ahead and do that. So a good number of their discs are region free, but if you're interested in some of these titles, you will have to check up to make sure if it is region free. If you don't have a region-free player or region-free capability, which really, if you're even considering it, I would definitely say go ahead and do it simply for the Indicator titles alone. They are that good. They are that much worth buying a region-free Blu-ray player, which I am so glad I did. Simply for these alone. These are stunning. So that does it for this video. Again, just a lot of Indicator gushing. I love them as a label. I love their business model. I love everything about them. I just wish it was cheaper to get things shipped from the UK, but for the quality you get, it's not terrible, and I will make many more Indicator purchases and hopefully more Indicator reviews as well. So thank you so very much for watching. Hopefully you can get some of these titles before all of them are out of print. I strongly encourage you to do so. I really do think Indicator does just about the best job of anybody in the world in terms of not just Blu-ray releases, but all aspects of Blu-ray releases, from the packaging, the art design, the supplemental sections, and most amazingly, the disc encoding as well. So I am a gigantic Indicator fanboy, and I admit there's a lot of gushing for Indicator in this video, but I am more than happy to do so because they've really earned it. So happy disc collecting, keep physical media alive, and again, thank you so very much for watching.